July 6, 1990 was a big day for PC Engine releases. There were two of the best games on the system, and one of the worst. We're starting with one of the good ones though, since Saigo no Nindou, Ninja Spirit, is one of the most well-known and beloved games on the PC Engine. Which tells you something about how well known these games are. Saigo no Nindou was originally an arcade game by Irem, and honestly, I've never seen one of these machines in the wild. It gives me the impression that it was more of a cult hit than a big success for Irem. Still, they were willing to port it 2 years later. The concept behind the game is that the young ninja Tsukikage keeps having visions where he sees his father die, while Tsukikage is in the form of a wolf. Well, those visions were enough for him to go out and kill every ninja he meets. The title, Saigo no Nindou, could be translated as the end of the ninja's path, which kind of implies that Tsukikage kills all of them. An interesting thing about the PC Engine port is that it was definitely created with an international release in mind. The English title, Ninja Spirit, is visible through everything, and the US version still defaults to a PC Engine mode. The only difference between the US and Japanese versions is that the US version has added the text "from NEC" to the title screen, since NEC kept tight controls over publishing games for the TurboGrafx. Saigo no Nindou is a side-scrolling action game. It's basically the secret love child between Ninja Ryukenden and Kage no Densetsu, or Ninja Gaiden and the Legend of Kage if you want to use the Western titles. Like Ninja Ryukenden, you've got a lot of dynamic movement, including clinging to some surfaces, and you have your sword to slice through people. The Shadow Clones aren't actually a copy of Ninja Ryukenden 2, since the arcade game predates the console game. Similar to Kage no Densetsu, you have an enormous vertical leap for traversing some stages, and you can play it as a run-and gun, throwing shuriken everywhere as you dash through the levels. The inspirations for Saigo no Nindou are really obvious. That's fine, because they are executed incredibly well. Tsukikage carries 4 weapons on him, and you cycle through those by pressing select. The weapons have a base form and a powered up form, and you power them up by collecting the red orbs that drop from Orange Ninja. You'll know a weapon is powered up if the symbol for it in the upper left hand corner is red. The sword is your basic weapon. Hit button 2, take a swing. It also has an overhead arc and a downward stab if you press in those directions. Powering it up adds a ring effect that extends the weapon's reach a little bit. The sword is very good at deflecting incoming ranged attacks, and it offers some decent damage. The biggest problem is its short range, and that tends to make you vulnerable to the very dangerous enemies on later levels. The shurikens start out as a single shot thrown straight ahead, and powering it up gives you a spread of 3 shots. You can also throw it in all directions, and if you have this powered up with a couple of clones going, you can really fill the screen with attacks. The downside here is that the damage is pretty weak, and while you might have a lot of attacks, there tends to be a lot of holes in the pattern. That makes it pretty bad at deflecting attacks, but for large enemies, the shuriken can get a lot of attacks in. The Kusarigama, or chain and sickle, is the trickiest of the 4 weapons to use, but it also has some unique features. In its default form, it's already pretty long, and powering it up just makes that chain even longer. The sickle at the end is large enough that it can deflect some shots, but the real strength here is that it can fire in any direction, and if you rotate the D-pad while you're attacking with it, then the chain will whip around. This is really effective in the air, and it's pretty good for wiping out small enemies. But getting the rhythm of that attack is kind of tough. Finally, there are the grenades. And the grenades are the best weapon. Okay, it can't deflect shots, but it can do boss quick kills. And I mean effortlessly do boss quick kills. Powering up the grenade allows you to throw more of them, and it makes the explosion bigger. If you have that when you reach a boss, then it just melts. There aren't really invincibility frames for you or enemies in Saigo no Nindou, so that damage from the explosion of the grenade gets checked constantly. Against some tougher regular enemies, that makes it the only viable option, since their repeated attacks will get to you long before you can finish them off with any other weapon. Between the large area of effect and extreme damage, the grenade just winds up being overwhelmingly powerful. Its biggest weakness is that you can set one down, and then it'll explode a few seconds later, and that move isn't really helpful. But who cares, you're blowing everything else up. The way that Saigo no Nindou handles damage is interesting. If you're playing in PC Engine mode, then you can take 5 hits. Theoretically. In arcade mode, any hit kills you. So, sticking with PC Engine mode, if you're hit by a projectile, then that's going to take one of those 5 points away. The projectile vanishes when it hits you, and that's the end of that. Other weapon attacks from enemies, on the other hand, are persistent, and so when they hit you, they will almost always burn through all 5 hits instantaneously. It's possible, though unlikely, to escape from an attack in those few frames before you die. You'll still have taken damage, of course, it's just you'll be left with 1 or 2 points. Now usually this kind of lack of invincibility is a real problem in action games, but I think it kind of works in Saigo no Nindou. It basically divides damage up between projectiles, which hurt you a little bit, and melee attacks, which are fatal. And since the game was originally built around any attack being fatal to players, having some attacks be lethal doesn't really drag anything down. It's a weird system, but it works for the game. There are a few more power-ups that you can collect from the Orange Ninja. The blue orbs are what generates the shadow clones that follow behind you. Since they only move when you do, you can leave them hovering in the air if you jump and then stand still afterward. Positioning them like that is very useful throughout the game. The pink orb is an explosion that kills all enemies on the screen, and this effect actually lingers for about 3 seconds. New enemies that appear while the explosion sound effect is still reverberating also get blown up. Finally, the yellow orb gives you a fire shield and acts as invincibility. That fire shield also gets applied to your clones, which just makes this item even more effective. Saigo no Nindou has 7 stages, and they're really short. If you know what you're doing, you can play through the whole game in about 10 minutes. It's also a bit of an easy game. For several years, it held the record as the most quickly defeated challenge on the TV show Game Center CX. Of course, if you do find it to be too easy, then just play arcade mode. Saigo no Nindou is pretty well regarded in Japan. They'll put it in their top 10 of the PC Engine list, and I even found a few that used it as part of their evidence that 1990 was the best year for the PC Engine. And my own take is, yeah, obviously this game's amazing. As a player, there's always tons of different approaches you can take. Even if the grenades are usually the best one, it doesn't mean that the other weapons are bad choices. And the way that you bound around stages and cling to ceilings and deal with a constant stream of attacks from all sides, it makes the game very exciting. I'd say it's the best action game of this style on the PC Engine. I just wish there was more of it.